only.
One. Yes, sir. Only comments only. Sir, we are live now.
Fine. Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Jignesh Kumar Trivedi. I am working as a assistant professor at Department of Life Sciences, Hemchandracharya, North Gujarat University. And today we are discussing about okay, I got you. Okay, હું screen share કરું છું. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
Fine. So, in the PhD journey, whatever data you are generating will be, published as a research publication. And these publications, basically, they are the connecting link between the researcher and the scientific, fraternity which is out there. So, the research publications becomes the most important part of your research journey. Okay, and then future jobs and wherever you are joining, your evaluation will be, done based on the publications you have. So this becomes the most important part. The thesis you are writing, that is just for the evaluation purpose, and after that, the thesis will be that much useful. And in the scientific language, the thesis is considered as the unpublished material. So that for data, the research publications are very important. So here in this particular talk for next 1.5 hours, we will discuss about what types of publications, what are the rules and regulation related to it. Okay. And if you have any questions or any queries regarding, whatever I'm presenting, you can instantly comment so I can answer your queries. This is a live streaming, but I would like to interact with the, listeners who are listening this talk, and that is how let's make this talk interactive instead of it becomes the, one way. So when it comes to the publications, Okay, we are reading information from various sources and all are considered as the publication. Right now, through the online medium and on the internet, you can see different articles are there which are written by many people. But by and large, if we see, then there are two type of publications. Okay, for example, the articles which are published in magazine or the newspaper, which we are reading in the offline medium. Now, most of the magazine and most of the news channels have the online website on which regularly the people are writing articles and we are reading it. But what is the difference between the articles which are published on the websites and the magazine and the scientific publication? There are few differences. For example, the articles which are written in the magazines and on the online news website, they are basically written by journalists. Okay, and how the journalists, they may not be from the field in which you are working, so they cover a lot of fields. But they nowadays the journalists are also having a specialization. For example, somebody is continuously writing the environmental column. Some people are working on the crime beat. Some people are covering the political things. Some people cover the showbiz business. Okay, so every journalist have their own expertise. But how do they write the articles? So for collecting the information regarding their article, they do consultation with a lot of researchers who are working actively in this field. But what is the beauty about this article? They are written for a wide audience. Okay, so any layman can read this article, and to read and understand this article, right, there is no requirement of a subject knowledge or the deep knowledge. They are written in very simple language. Okay, and it is expected that readers are not from the scientific field, still they can understand what actually the topic is about. For that, the language is kept very, very simple. Okay, and then they have the editor. The editor will approve the article, and finally it will be published either in the what you call website or in the magazine or in the newspaper. Okay, and you can see the frequency of publication. It may be a frequency daily one volume is published. For example, we are getting newspaper every day, so for them the publication frequency is very high, so every day you will get something to read. Okay, the magazines, okay, maybe they may be weekly or monthly. For example, here we have Scientific India and we have Century. So every month, I guess they are publishing one volume. So depending on the frequency of publication, the kind of article you will receive, the kind of detailing or the kind of detailed information on the frequency of publication. So for you are reading daily, where the time for doing the research is very limited. But if the magazine is published every month, then we still have long time to do research. If there is a quarterly publication every 4 month, one volume is coming, then the journalists who are working in this particular magazine will get a lot of time to do research. Okay, and then you can see for this kind of magazine, the color photographs are very important because to attract the people, the magazine should have some beautiful photographs so that the people will get interest in it. That's why you can see every magazine, the kind of page quality, if it is coming offline, if it is coming in the print version, right, the page quality, the quality of the printing is required of a high standard. So the beautiful pictures are required to attract the people. Okay, so that is about the article which are published in non-scientific magazine or the newspaper. But what we are most interested, right, here you can see some examples. So when the scientists are doing discoveries, right, the newspaper will cover and they will write an article about the discovery. This is our own discovery, my own discovery during my PhD time, when we described new species of the crabs from the coastal area of Gujarat. The English newspaper Times of India has written a beautiful short article regarding the discovery, where you can see, if you see the kind of language which is used by the reporter, right, it is very, very simple. It is not that much scientific, but any layman who is having very little knowledge about marine biology or the what you call the crabs, can easily read this article and he or she can understand what exactly the article wants to say or what is the discovery or what kind of research the scientists have done behind this research. Right? This kind of news articles we are reading every day on internet, on online website as well as in the offline websites. Okay, but what we are mostly interested is the second type, which is very, very important for us, right? The scholarly or academic journals, which are publishing research papers written by the scientific community, specifically the PhD students, the scientists, and the professors who are working in the academic as well as in the research institute. Okay, so here you can see the articles are written by researcher and the subject experts who are working in this particular area. But now, what is the difference between the newspaper article and the scientific article? Right, their editor is there who is just proofreading and seeing the content of the article, whether it is relevant to the newspaper or not. Okay, but in case of scientific article, right, the peer review process is there. It means the people who are working in your field, right, they will go through your article. They will try to find out what are the queries related to the article, what is the quality of the article, and they will provide comment. And then there is a review process. We will, talk in detail what exactly the peer review process is there. Now, who is writing this kind of articles in journal, scientific journal, right? The academicians are there, the researchers are there, and research students are there, right? The author assume now who can read these articles which are published in the scientific journal. So, what is the basic requirement? The reader who is reading the article should have certain amount of subjective knowledge. So, for example, I am a zoologist. If I am a reading article belongs to a quantum physics, then my understanding about the article will be very, very little. But if I am reading the article published in the field of zoology, that to be published in the field of taxonomy and marine biology, which is my research subject, then I can fully understand what is written in the article. So here these articles become very, very selective and their audience will be very, very selective. So those people who are working in this particular field can read this article. Okay, and now what is the purpose of publishing this article? These articles written by researchers and the academician will increase the knowledge regarding the subject. So they will add on the knowledge of what was lacking, right? That will be added by these particular articles. And who is publishing this article? Many universities are there which are funding these journals and they are publishing this article. Nowadays, many commercial organizations like Springer, Elsevier, and Ville, okay, they are also publishing this article. Now, when the journals were coming in offline mode, right? The print journals were available. At that time, the frequency of volume was very less. Okay, some journals were there which were monthly publishing one volume, and some journals were quarterly publishing. Some journals were publishing a single volume in a year. But now we are living in a digital era where the requirement of printing is not there. Most of the journals have now, come online. They have their own websites, and whenever the article is getting accepted, right, it will be instantly published on their website. Okay, so they are the online first article, and later on they will be included in the volume. Now, many journals have monthly volumes. Many journals have quarterly volumes, and many journals have a continuous volume throughout the year. Okay, so now because of this online digital era, right, the journey after the accepted article and the published version is becoming very, very, the time is becoming very, very less. Otherwise, when offline journals were there, it used to take very long time for the article to get published in the volume. Okay, now before we go into the detail, that we have to understand what is the history of scientific publication, right? It is always, we are always curious what was the first, when was the first article, scientific article was published. So here the journey is there. The first article, right? The first article was published in 1665. Before that, okay, the scientists used to present their discoveries in front of the jury, right? And the jury used to listen their paper and they used to accept whether the discovery is correct or not. But the history, the first journal which has published an article, research article, was Journal des Scribans, and in English, the Philosophical Transaction of the Royal Society first began systematically publishing the results. So here you can see the photographs which are taken from the internet, which are showing the first published journal. Okay, so these are their what you call the front pages. You can see over here. Now, not only the people who are currently doing PhD, but many great scientists we know have also published a research paper in the scientific journals. Over here, you can see these are the two beautiful examples. Those people who are working in the biological sciences, they will be related, right? They will find some relation with this article. Here, you can see everybody is known to DNA, right? DNA is the life molecule of any living organism. So the discovery of DNA, which is well known throughout the scientific community, whether they belongs to biology or not, everybody knows about the discovery of DNA. Okay, so this is the published research paper. It is just one page research paper written by two great scientists who have Watson and Crick, who have published this paper about the structure of the deoxyribose nucleic acid. You can see this is the original manuscript published in Nature journal in the year 1953. Over here, you can see the publication date, April 25, 1953. The journal name is Nature, and here is the page number. So this is the evidence, and this is the beautiful thing right now. We can see because of the digital technology. Over here, second paper, you can see the British Journal of Experimental Pathology. Okay, very famous paper. We all know the discovery of the first antibiotic, penicillin. So this is written by the great scientist Alexander Fleming, who has discovered the antibiotic called penicillin. And this is the original research paper regarding the discovery of penicillin published in the journal called the British Journal of Experimental Pathology. Here you can see our own mathematician, the great mathematician Ramanujan, who has published a paper with his supervisor. So this is Hardy and Ramanujan, right? The paper was published in the journal Asymptomatic Formulae in the Combination Analysis. So this is the research paper published by Dr. Srinivas and Ramanujan. This is again, I have kept this photograph specifically for those or working in the chemistry. This is the original, the front page of the thesis written by Madame Curie. This is her research about the radiation. Okay, one more. This is Professor C.V. Raman, the great physicist. Right? He has published this paper in different journals. So we are not only the one who are publishing research paper in the journal, but the great scientists who have discovered, so many things, right? They have also published their research in the scientific journal. So this is the very old practice starting from 1653 to 2026. So it has been more than 400 years since the, scientific journals are publishing papers. Now, why? What is the reason why people are writing the scientific articles? So this is a small, what you call the flow chart, which is, describing the importance of, publishing the scientific paper. Okay, so articles, the research article written by different scientists and researchers are considered as the tools which are used for sharing the research and development information, thus being the means of progress in diverse sphere of research carried out by the experts. So here you can see what exactly we are doing. The scientists are actually generating the knowledge in terms of data, and the data and the knowledge combinedly becomes the information. And who is using this information? Whatever information we are publishing, okay, it is used by the other expert who are working in this field to convert the knowledge generated by the researcher into the application. For example, Alexander has discovered the penicillin, and using the knowledge of how to make antibiotics, right? Different other antibiotics have been discovered, and right now we are using. What is the application? Right, we are using the antibiotics to cure several kind of diseases. So this is the thing behind why we are publishing paper, because we want to share the knowledge. As they have said that whenever you are sharing the knowledge, there will be a increase in the knowledge of that particular subject. Okay, and whatever articles which are being published every day regarding various subjects. Okay, these articles are basically what you call, they are the tool to actually check the scientific performance of a particular individual. So whenever you are applying for any position or any job or any award, how to measure your potential or how to measure the performance or how to compare the scientific temperament of two different individuals at that particular time, the kind of papers have been published by the researcher are used to measure the scientific performance of the researcher. Okay. Now, when we are writing articles, so there are different type of article, and the first and the most common one is called as a full article or original research article, which is a common type nowadays found in many journals. So basically, what is original article? This is the most important article type, includes the scientific research results and the length of the paper depending on the subject. This is generalized statement that the scientific paper may be of 10 to 25 pages, but depend, right? Some of my papers are around 80 to 100 pages long, depending on the topic, depending on the information or the knowledge compiled in the form of the research article. So that's a very common article type, full article or the original article. The second one is called as the rapid communication, short communication, or letters. Now, sometimes what happens when we are doing some kind of research, okay, which is a long-term research, research may be generating very short form of results where you have some results but they cannot be summarized as a full length article. For example, I'm working in the field of taxonomy. Whenever I am describing a new species of any animal, it can go as a full length or the original research ideas, but sometimes I also come across the species which are first time reported from India or Gujarat. Okay, so this kind of articles which are having limited information can be published as the short communication where you want to some little advancement in the research field is there which can be published as the short communication. And the last type is called as a review article. Now, review articles becomes the most important articles because this is the first step of your PhD journey. Whenever you are deciding your topic, that on which topic I have to work, you have done a review of literature. Now, what is the purpose of doing the review of literature? It will let you know that what is already done and what is lacking. Typically, when you do literature review, you will come across that this much work has already been done in on which I want to do research, and that is how it will help you to identify the gap of knowledge. And to fill the gap of knowledge, you will perform your own research. Okay, so the review articles are very relevant for any researcher who is working on this particular topic. So suggestion is that whatever is your research topic, like whatever the literature you have already collected from various sources, right, compile them and try to make one which will let us know the other scientific community that what is already many journals which are present, which are what you call the publishing this review article, they are actually giving invitation to the researcher working in this particular field to write a review article. Is it everything okay? Can you see my screen and voice? Can you hear my voice? Hello. Admin, please reply. Can you hear my voice? Am I audible? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is about the type of research. Can you see the screen, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. So, what is the process of writing a research paper? So, what exactly you should know before you write a research paper? So, once you are doing a research, you have the topic is already selected, the objectives are well defined. You know what is the gap in the knowledge. Based on that, you have defined some objectives. Now, your methodology is also well established. You have already conducted the pilot study to check whether your protocols are working fine or not. Once everything is done, right, you will start performing your original research work. Okay. And then once you have the data, okay, now it's the time to convert the data into a scientific paper. But what exactly you should do before you start writing a paper? So first thing, do I have sufficient important innovative data? That's the first test. You have to decide whether the kind of topic on which I'm working now I want to write a research paper. But first thing, do I have the data which is helpful for me to write a research paper. Okay, if the research result is an extensive, it is recommended to rather prepare one manuscript or of a good quality and comprising all the necessary information than several manuscripts of an average level. Now, this is again, depending on the choice because sometimes the quality is important, sometimes the quantity is important. So depending on the data set you have to decide whether I can summarize, whether I can use all the data and publish one good research paper in a high impact factor journal, or should I divide the data into small, what you call data sets and publish several research papers which can be go as a short communication. So depending on your choice, you have to consult this with your supervisor or your guide whether we should go for a single paper or multiple paper. Now, once you decide that, okay, I want to write a single paper or multiple papers from your data set, right? The second one is which journal to choose. Now, this is very, very important, what you call the aspects of publishing a paper, the journal selection. Because you have to see what kind of journals are there which are publishing a paper which belongs to the topic on which I am working. Okay, so depending on your type study, depending on the already published paper, you have to decide whether which journal I should publish, right? There are different factors which are responsible for selection of journal. For example, right, some journals are there which are not accepting paper directly. They will send invitation to a particular researcher who are working in the field. They will invite the paper and they will publish the paper. Okay. Then you can decide the paper depending on the recent publications or recent paper which are related to your topic. Based on that, you can decide the journal. Okay. So once the journal is selected, we will see how to choose a journal. There are different tools available on internet right now which are helpful for you to decide the journal. And you also have to see what is the what is the topic, whether your topic is a regional importance or the international importance. Depending on that also, you can decide a journal in which you want to publish a paper. Sometimes if your study is a regional importance, then you can publish a paper in the journal which are publishing from India. And if your research topic is of a global importance, then you can choose some international journals also. Okay. Now, each and every journal is having a peculiar kind of formatting requirement. Okay, so how to start writing a paper? You have to see what are the formatting requirement of the journal. Okay, because if your research paper is not following the formatting of the journal, it will be rejected straight away by the editor. Okay, so every journal has a peculiar format, specifically how to cite a research paper. So there are different type of citation formats at the end side. There is a section called references in which the journal is also already providing how to cite the full references at the back. Okay, so here there is a section whenever you go to the website of the journal. Okay, there is one section which is called as the guide for authors. You have to read this section very, very carefully because what is the page limit of the journal, what is the word limit of the journal, what is the font size, what is the font style, how many figures are what you call allowed. Okay, sometimes the journals are saying that strictly we will allow only 8 figures to 10 figures. How many tables are allowed? Okay, so other material can be added as a supplementary material, whether the journal is publishing color images or not, whether there is a charge of publishing color image or not. Second thing, whether the journal is open access or hybrid journal. Here the word open access. Open access means if you are publishing a paper in this journal which is open access, then you have to pay APC, which is called as the article processing charges, because they are the open access journal. So if your article is selected, you have to pay charges to publish a paper. These charges may be covered by your university, may be covered in some research project you have, may be covered in the fellowship you are getting. But most of the time, the Indian researcher, we are, we don't have enough funding to pay the APC because their APCs are very high. Because many journals will be asking for $2,000, $4,000 in pounds, in francs. Okay, so that amount, when we convert into Indian rupees, become very huge amount which we cannot pay. So what important thing you have to look for whenever it is written that support open access or subscription based journal or hybrid journal. I'm talking about the international publication where these kind of things will be written. So if it is written supports open access, it means it is giving you two options. Either you pay APC and your paper will be open access. Open access means anybody can download the paper free of charge. And if you are publishing a paper on a subscription base where you are not paying any kind of article processing charge and your paper is published, so if somebody wants to read your paper, the researcher or the person who wants to read your paper has to pay, the some amount of money to download a paper. So this becomes very important that you see what is the requirement of the journal and whether you will be able to pay article processing charges or not. Now, precautions before submission of manuscript. Okay, so once your manuscript is ready, okay, you have already gone through the manuscript, your supervisor has already, what you call, read the manuscript and everybody has approved, right? Most of the scientific, publications are coming in English because English is a global language. Okay, so you have to check whether you have in your the quality of English which you have used to write a manuscript, whether it is of international standard or not, whether it is grammatically correct or not, right? And to check that nowadays many softwares are available which will be helpful for us to check the quality of English in your manuscript. Okay, whether your graphs and tables and figures are according to the required journals or not, right? We have to use high resolution images of graphs. So whenever somebody is enlarging your graph to see the little details in your graph, the image should not be, what you call, the resolution will be high, so where the image will not become fade. Okay, the kind of fonts we are using in table should be highly readable and it should be according to the format of the journal. Okay, now whatever reference you are citing or whatever facts you are saying in the manuscript should be up to the date, and you have to write a cover letter to the editor to describe why this manuscript is more relevant to the journal. You have to prove it, and that thing should be written in the cover letter. Why some papers are before? Because once you submit the paper, right, your manuscript will be received by the journal and they will start processing it. So the first person who reads your manuscript is basically the editor or the handling editor or the chief editor before it goes to the review process. So if the editor is not impressed, okay, your manuscript will be rejected from the desk. Okay, so what are the reasons behind the desk rejection? The first thing is the topic of the manuscript is not falling in the scope of the journal. Okay, for example, the journal is about the plant science, Journal of Plant Science, and I am submitting a paper from the animal science, then it will be straight away rejected. because the scope of the journal is not matching with the manuscript title. Okay, so the title or the topic of the manuscript should be in the scope of the journal. Okay, then absence of new knowledge. For example, if the editor is realizing that the manuscript is actually having a routine analysis and it is not, adding any kind of new knowledge in the existing stock of the knowledge, then your paper will be rejected. Okay, then the manuscript does not require the format of the does not falling in the requirement of the format of the journal, then your manuscript will be dash rejected. So the when you are doing a formatting of the journal, for example, if the font style and the font size and the reference citation pattern is not matching with the journal's requirement, then your manuscript will be rejected. And lastly, if the language is not correct, the editor will reject your manuscript. So to, stay away from the desk rejection or to save our manuscript from the desk rejection, we have to follow this condition. If everything is okay, if the editor is happy with the manuscript, then we will enter into the next step. Okay, so the next step is the manuscript evaluation process. Okay, so once you submit here, you can see the author is basically submitting a manuscript. So straight away it will go to the editor. He is the first person who will read your paper. If the editor is not satisfied or early rejection will be there. If the editor is satisfied, then it will go to the reviewers. Now, who are basically the reviewers? Okay, so reviewers are the scientists who are working in the field relevant to your topic. For example, if I am working in animal taxonomy and pollution research, specifically the microplastic pollution, whenever I am submitting the manuscript to journals which are relevant to animal taxonomy as well as to the microplastic pollution, right? The editor will see my manuscript. If the editor is satisfied, then he will try to find out the scientists who are working in this field, and the manuscript will be sent to the reviewers. Okay, depending on the journal, policy, the number of reviewers may vary. Sometimes the big journals are selecting going up to 7 to 8 to 10 reviewers. Some journals are going for 5 reviewers. Some journals are going for 2 reviewers. But nowadays journals are sending, 5 to 7 invitation because not everybody is free to read your manuscript. So out of five, 2 or 3 reviewers who are having, little bit of time, who are interested in this research or to read your manuscript will accept the invitation to review your paper. Okay, and they will start reading your paper. Now, editor to reviewer. Okay, the time of reviewing your manuscript will vary depending on the journal, but normally it takes almost 2 to 3 months because we have to allow the reviewers to read the manuscript carefully and to comment on the manuscript. This is the time, the average time taken for the reviewing the manuscript varies from 2 months to 6 months or 8 months. Okay, so once the reviewers are going through a paper, they will read your paper and they will find out the queries and the question they have for the authors, and they will list down the questions. Okay, and then they will submit this manuscript back to the editor. Now, editor, once the editor receives the reviewer's comment, he or she will check whether the manuscript is accepted as it is. And if your manuscript is written excellently, the reviewers are satisfied and they have no further question, then your manuscript will come as accept in the present form. If the reviewers are having minor queries, because by and large the manuscript is written good, only few queries are there, then your manuscript will come as the minor revision. Okay, if the reviewers are having more queries, then it will come as a major revision. And if the reviewers are not at all impressed by your manuscript, then they can reject your manuscript. If the manuscript is rejected, again we are back to the square one. Again, you have to go for the new journal. But if your manuscript is coming, right, accepted in the present form, in the first review round, it's a very rare case. Very rarely, the manuscript will be accepted after the first round of review. The manuscript comes back with minor or major reviews. And what is the rule for the journal? Out of 5 reviewers, if 2 reviewers have submitted their report, then it is okay. The editor will take the decision based on the review submitted by two reviewers. Sometimes out of two reviewer, if first reviewer has rejected your manuscript and second reviewer has given a major revision. In this case, depending on the policy of the journal, either the editor can reject the manuscript or it can be sent back for the major revision. But most of the time nowadays, if any reviewer is rejecting your manuscript for publication, it will be straight away rejected. That's a policy of the journal. But sometimes the journal also take, based out of three, based out of two, okay, they take the decision. So once the manuscript is with the editor and it is coming with minor or major review, it will be sent back to the author to revise the manuscript. So you will again get your manuscript back with reviewer's comment. You and your supervisor will go through the comments provided by the reviewers. Based on the comments, you will still revise the manuscript. Again, the revised manuscript will be submitted to the journal. Again, the editor will read your particular manuscript. He or she will go to the responses which you have given towards the comment given by the reviewer. So revised manuscript is there, and you also have to write down the responses, whether you are accepting the comment or given by the reviewer, or you are actually what you call rejecting the comment given by the reviewer. You have to provide your justification for each and every what you call the comment, and whatever changes you have done in the manuscript should be highlighted with yellow color or green color, so the reviewers again can read your manuscript and what revisions you have made. So once the editor is having your manuscript, right, the editor will send again invitation to the same reviewers who have previously, commented on the manuscript. So the reviewers again they will read your manuscript, and if they are satisfied with your revision, okay, they will accept your manuscript for publication. And if they have still further queries, okay, they will again provide comments on the manuscript. Again, the same process will be repeated. So after some, some papers are accepted after the first revision. If they're coming with the minor revision, if they're coming with the major revision, one more round of review will be done. So after all the review round are completed, finally the reviewers will say, we are satisfied with the revision. Now the paper can be accepted for publication. So once then the editor will provide a mail to you that your paper is accepted for the publication. So that's the end of the second most important procedure, which is called as a review procedure. Now, once the review is done, okay, still there is a time in publication of the paper. Now, the editor will send your accepted manuscript to the press or the publisher. So there is another editor called publishing editor or the press editor who will again receive your manuscript. They will actually convert. That's the seventh stage, okay, where your accepted manuscript will be converted into the publication format of the journal. So now your paper exactly look like what is the final layout of your paper. So that your Word file will be converted into the final layout of the journal. Once the layout is ready, then your press editor will again send you the proofreading or the galley proof your article, and you will perform a step called proofreading. So in proofreading, what you have to do once you receive your galley proof, okay, the press editor may have raised some queries. They check the surnames and the name of the authors, whether your title is correct or not. You have to see whether there is any spelling mistake or any formatting mistake in the citation of the journal. At the back, at the last part, is the reference. So you have to check everything carefully, because if any mistake is there and if the article is published, then that is not a good sign of a researcher. Okay, and that is also a bad thing for journal, that your proofreading stage is not important. So whatever books and everything we are reading, they are carefully proofread to remove any formatting related mistake, any spelling mistake, any grammatical mistake. So once you are going through your paper, if you have any queries, you can ask to the press editor, and once you approve that there is no further mistakes in the paper, okay, you will send back the Gallup proof to the publisher, and then if the journal is online, your paper will be published online first, and then it will be available on the website of the journal, and later on it will be included in the volume. If the journal is publishing in offline mode, it means it is actually printed in the press and you will get the hard copy. Then your paper will be, printed in the journal volume. And once your paper is published, then it will be included into different databases. So this entire procedure, you can now understand if you are from the submission to the final publication, this entire process, it may take 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, sometime a year also. Okay, so this is not a quick process. So if you want to publish a paper, you should know that at least you should have 8 months of runway to publish the paper. Okay, so this is the entire manuscript evaluation process. Now, the next important thing is impact factor. Okay, we all know this word called impact factor. Now, what exactly impact factor is there? So this is one of the indicator, okay, to check the quality of the journal or the academic importance of the journal. Okay, and how this impact factor is calculated. So over here there is an example. What is the impact factor for 2012? So how many citations the journal has received in the year and how many papers the journal has published during that particular period. So we all know that we cite the paper and those papers belongs to any of the journal. So once you cite a paper, the journal will receive one citation. Okay, we see Google Scholar in which the citations are given. Right, for example, my citations are somewhere around 1,700. It means the paper research paper written by me. Okay, they have been cited by others 1,700 times. Okay, so the journal, for example, the journal has received 505 citation during the year of 2010 and 11, and during this particular time period the journal has published 100 articles. So 505 divided by 100, so total citation received by the journal in a particular year divided by the number of papers published by the journal in a particular year. This dividation will give you the impact factor of 5.05. Okay, so what is the impact factor of the journal becomes the most important thing for the academic, what you call academic performance of the journal. So some journals are there, for example, Science and Nature. They are having very high impact factor. Okay, their journal impact factor may be beyond 50, which is showing that it is highly reputed journal. But impact factor will become if it but the impact factor is not comparable. For example, depending on the field you are working. For example, in case of biology, those who are working in the field of cancer biology, there are many journals and many researchers are working in the field of cancer biology. So normally their impact factor will be very high. But if you are working in a very rare topic, for example, animal taxonomy, where very less scientists are working, the journal impact factor will be low. Okay, so the impact factor is on one hand, it is very important to check the academic performance of the journal, but sometimes it becomes irrelevant because very less researchers are working. So how to see the journal? You have to see what is the importance or what is the reputation of that journal in your field. For example, in animal taxonomy, the Zoo Taxa is world's number one journal in animal taxonomy, but its impact factor is just one because very less researchers are working and the journal is also publishing many paper a year. Okay, so depending on what is the reputation of the journal in your field, you have to select the journal, and to get the information you can discuss with the researcher who are working in the field, or you can simply ask your supervisor that which journal is highly considered, highly reputed in our field. Second index, which is very common, which is called as H index, which is showing the individual performance of the researcher. Okay, so if you go and check your Google Scholar profile, you will get total number of citation. Okay, what is the H index and what is the I-10 index? So H index becomes, very important for the individual performance of the researcher. How it is calculated? For example, my H index is 10. It means whatever paper I have published, 10 papers are there which are cited 10 times. So my 10 papers are cited 10 times. It means my H index become 10. If my H index is 50, it means 50 research paper written by me are cited 50 times individually. Okay, so this becomes H index, and there is something called I-10 index. I-10 index means how many papers of the researcher cited at least 10 times. Okay, so that is how these three the impact factor, H index, and I-10 index are calculated. But for academic performance, to see whether the researcher is having good performance or not, you have to see H index, because this will help you to know whether the paper written by the researcher are read by the scientific community and cited by the scientific community or not. But if you go and see, there are so many impact factor which are called as the fake impact factor. You can see over here I have listed few impact factor which are fake impact factor. For example, whenever you open any journal and it is written global impact factor, it is fake. There is something called Arab impact factor. There is something called site factor. There is something called Cosmos impact factor. There is something lot of global impact factor, global citation impact factor. These all are fake. Index, Copernicus, Info Index. These all are the fake impact factor. But what is real? So there is one agency which is called as the Clarivate analysis, which in the older time used to call as the Thomson Reuters impact factor. But now the Thomson Reuters were acquired by the company called Clarivate Analysis, and they are publishing a report called Journal Citation Report, which is commonly known as the JCR report. And this report is having impact factor of each and every journal, and this report is published every year. So if you want to know what is the real impact factor of the journal, you have to go and check the website called Clarivate Analysis, in which there is a journal citation report available, and whatever impact factor written in this JCR report is considered as the correct impact factor. So this is important thing you have to keep in mind when we talk about impact factors. Okay. Now, UGC has launched Academic Performance Index, which is commonly known as the API, in 2013. So, for the promotion of professors in college and university, for the selection of professors in the university or the colleges, they have launched the API index, where you can see you will get marks for your research publication. For example, if your paper is published in peer-reviewed journal or UGC listed journal, you will get 8 points per paper. Okay, and then if you have published books and other things, you will get marks. But most of the points are coming from the published research paper. Now over here there is a augmentation also. If your paper is published in the referred journal, then 8 plus 5, it means for every paper commonly you will get 13 points. But if your paper is published in the journal which is having impact factor less than 1, then you can add 10 more points. So 10 plus 8 is equal to 18. So likewise, that you will get. If your paper is published in a journal which is having impact factor greater than 10, then 30 points. 30 plus 8 is equal to 38. So for that paper, you will get 38 points. Again, for the API count, like the first author and the corresponding author, it means you and your guide both will get at least 70% marks out of the total score. Okay, the second or the third author will get 30% marks of the total score. So, for example, if your paper is having 10 points, then you as the first author and your supervisor as a corresponding author will get 7 marks for that paper. The rest of the authors who are falling from second author to the last author, they will get 30 marks, 3 marks for the paper. So this API was launched, and this has become, the all the researcher who wants to get a permanent job or promotion, everybody started publishing papers. So either you publish or perish. Because if you are not publishing, okay, you will not get a good API score, and if your API score is not good, you will not get promotion or you won't be selected for the job. Okay, and for promotion also, there is a requirement of a particular API point which is written in the UGC guidelines. So everybody started publishing research papers, and right, not every researcher is a good researcher. Everybody wants to have quick publication. So here there was a problem of quality versus quantity. Okay, so here you can see if the journal is not at all having impact factor, no problem. 8 plus 5 is equal to 13. For every paper, you will get 13. And if I am publishing a paper which is greater than 10, okay, I have to have a huge data. All my thesis will go into one paper, and I will publish a paper in a journal which is having impact factor more than 10. Then I will get only 38 point for only one paper. But in the if compared to others, if the same data can be converted into 10 papers, okay, then I will get more points. So to the increase the API, everybody has chosen quantity over quality, and many journals were there who were publishing a paper even without a review process. Quick publication has become a fashion throughout the world and specifically in India because of the API performing index, and this has given birth to a major problem in the scientific community, which is called as what? The predatory journals. Now, here the word is very interesting, predatory journal. It means it is actually a predator and predates on whom? Who is the prey item? We are the researcher, becomes the prey item. And this problem is that so the term was coined predatory journal. What is predatory journal? A predatory journal is a publication that actively asks the researcher for the manuscript. So every day you will get mail and there will be promises that your paper will be published within a week, within 15 days, sometime next day the paper will be published. And in this particular journal, there is no review system. The reviewers are not consulted. There is fake editorial board. It means the professors who are not at all working in your field, they will be there in the editorial board. Sometimes the fictitious person, the real person actually doesn't exist. This kind of paper will be there. And if you go through the kind of papers which are published in the journal, they will be mediocre paper, even worthless paper are published. And what is the beauty of this predatory journal? For each and every paper, right? They will ask for the money. Okay. So who is actually identified this problem? So there is a scientist called Jeffrey Bell who works at the University of Colorado in Denver, USA, who is the one who has found out that this journal, so he's the basically the person who coined the term predatory journal, that it refers to the journal, seems to be exploit scholars and academics and they need to publish the result or results of the research. Okay, so when scientists chose quality over quantity, it has given birth to this particular problem, which is called as what? Predatory journals. Okay, so here is the person, Geoffrey Bell, Professor Geoffrey Bell, who works at the University of Colorado, and he has actually written this beautiful article called Pathology in Publishing. It means this is a disease to the scientific in fraternity, and he has written predatory journals threaten the scientific integrity. Now, you can now have some scientists have actually conducted sting operations to identify whether the journal is predatory or not. And this is the classic case over here. Okay, this paper looks very simple. Mitochondria, structure, function, and clinical relevance, which is written by two fictitious or hypothetical authors, Lucas McGeorge and Anakin. Basically, these two names are coming from a movie called Star Wars. Okay, so there is a Lucas film and there is a Anakin, which is the main character of the film. And you can see in this entire paper, they are talking about one small organelle, which is called as the midichlorian. Now, midichlorian is basically the name of the alien race, which is shown in the movie Star Wars. And in this paper, they have literally written things about the movie called Star Wars. Here you can see it is not a story of the Jedi. Now, Jedi is the character in the film Star Wars, right? It was the Sith legend, Darth Vader, this all Dark Lord of the Sith. These all are the words which are coming in the movie called Star Wars. So this entire paper is fake. The entire study is fake. Okay, and when they submitted this to a journal called International Journal of Molecular Biology, okay, so instantly the journal has accepted this paper and it was published. You can see it is received on May 30, which means it was received on 30th May 2070, and within a month, within 2 months, on July 14, the paper was published online. It means this paper has not read by editor, it is not read by any reviewer. So if the reviewer or the editor, if they would have read this paper, they would have identified that this is a fake paper. It is talking about some money. It is movie. It is not a scientific paper. But this predatory journal has published this paper in mini review. So this is the sting operation which was carried out by these two researchers to find whether the journal is predatory or not. Okay, so this kind of fake journal is also read, and India has become home to the predatory journal. This is the sting operation carried out by Indian Express, the newspaper, and they have found out that in Hyderabad, in this particular building, there is a group which is publishing journal, which is called as a Omics Group, which was publishing around more than 700 journals from one room. And all the journals were predatory journals. There was no review system. They were receiving papers from the researcher and they were publishing it, and for every publication they were charging somewhere around 800 rupees to 5000 rupees. So 700 journals, and they have published more than around 10,000 articles. Okay, so you can see the amount of the money they have charged, and this was a huge scam, which was a black day for Indian science, because from one building this many fake journals were published. So this is the clear-cut case of the Predator Journal. Whatever data which was published in that paper is not valid, right? That the integrity of the data is very, very questionable. The people who have published in this kind of journals, they are also questionable. So we have to be very, very careful when we are selecting the journal for publication of our what you call hard-earned data, because it should not be a predatory journal. Now, the question comes, how to identify, whether the journal is predatory or not. So Bail has given several criteria. I am reading out those criteria. The publisher is is identified as an editor or each and every journal published by the organization. Okay, so here you can see the editor who may be the owner of the journal. That is, no single individual is identified as any scientific journal's editor. Sometimes on the journals and on website, okay, there is no single person, not a single person who is basically the chief editor of the journal. Okay, uh, there is no editorial board. So when you go to the website of the journal, there is no editorial board listed. But nowadays, fake editorial boards are also there. So what you have to do, whenever you read any name in the editorial board, just go and check on the internet whether this kind of person is really existing or belongs to that particular university or not. Okay, so no academic information is provided regarding the editor. Sometimes only a single name is given. The editor works in which institute, which research institute, which university. That kind of detail is not given, even not for the other editorial staff, which shows this is a fake journal. Okay. Here again, the editors which are there in the journal, which are not having any kind of expertise in the field, okay, two or more journals have duplicate editor work. The same people are also there in the other journals editorial board, which are published from the same institute. Then again, same publication, or then again, it is the what you call the predatory journal. It is not having sufficient number of the board members, then again it becomes, for example, only two, three members are there in the editorial board, only three people are running the journal. That is also very much questionable. Like there should be a list of people who are edited in the journal. Okay. Again, the all the editors are from the same region or from the same country or from the same institute, which also shows this is a predatory journal. And again, there is no female members in the editorial board, and the most important thing is the journal is asking for the money. That is the main problem. Okay, now how to find the journal, whether it is, what you call the predatory or not. Okay, again, Clarivate analysis is actually providing one, what you call the search engine, which is called as a Web of Science. Okay, so here the Clarivate analysis is running Web of Science. So this is you have to go to the Clarivate analysis and go for master journal list. Okay, and you type the name of the journal or ISSN number of the journal, and you search. If it is placed in the database of Clarivate analysis, then it is a good journal. It is not a predatory journal. That is point number one. Web of Science is a large database run by Clarivate analysis. Many journals are part of it. Okay, you can also check the second database, which is called as the Scopus database, okay, which is little bit smaller as compared to Web of Science, but it is also having the list of the journals. Okay, so Scopus database and the what you call the Web of Science database are very relevant to find out a journal. And recently, the UGC has launched UGC CARE list. What is the full form of the CARE? Consortium of Academic and Research Ethics. So before recent advances, right, recent amendment by the UGC, right, those who have registered in 2018 or 2019, maybe in 2020 also, like before 22, I guess, right, it was mandatory for all the researcher to publish at least one research paper in the journal which is listed in Web of Science or Scopus or in the care list. Okay, if the journal is part of these three database, any of the three database, then you will be allowed to submit the thesis. Plus, two conference presentations were mandatory. So this is to control the predatory journals, because we know that predatory journals will not be part of these three database. Okay, but recently, right, I'll tell you what happens recently in the UGC mandate. So everybody started publishing in Web of Science or Scopus or UGC Callister journals. This has helped a lot to improve the quality of the scientific publishing. Okay, but recently what UGC has realized that publishing a paper, a mandatory requirement of publishing a paper, it was creating a lot of problem for supervisors and the researcher, because they've given a clear-cut example that those researchers which were working in the field of computer science, they are not fond of publishing a research paper. They are more fond of presenting their work in the conferences. Okay, so they were not very much toward the publishing a research paper, so they were not publishing. But this mandatory thing was forcing the researcher to publish at least a one research paper. And recently, in the 2022 amendment, what UGC has done, that it has also started offering a part-time PhDs. Okay, so this part-time PhD researcher actually working for just a degree. They are not fond of publishing paper for them, because they are actually doing their job, and plus side by side they are doing the PhD work. So for them, it was very difficult to publish a paper in a journal. So UGC has removed, right, the requirement of the publication of the paper from the PhD thesis. Okay, earlier it was mandatory. If you want to submit a thesis for the award of the PhD or for further evaluation of the PhD, you have to at least publish one research paper and two conference presentation. But nowadays, those who are actually registered after 2022, specifically you guys are registering your PhD in 2025. So for you, it is not mandatory to publish a paper for submission of the thesis. But however, what UGC has written, that for submission of the thesis, the publication of the paper from the thesis is not required. But however, to get a good job or for to apply for the job of assistant professor or researcher, the jobs which are based where the PhD degree is mandatory, for the evaluation of your vertical application, good number of papers are required. So this is clear cut, making a demarcation that those who are interested in publishing paper, they will go for a good scholarly publication, and I recommend that everybody should get at least good amount of research paper from a thesis, so that whenever you are applying for the jobs, right, the committee can evaluate, because API, the requirement of publishing paper has gone, but API is still there. Academic Performance Index is still there, which is used for the evaluation of the application submitted by the candidate for a peculiar job. So good API score is still required, and to make a good API score, we have to publish research paper from our thesis. Okay, so that is there. So now, which are the reputed publishers? So I have listed few reputed publication house which are publishing a good amount of paper, and they are not having any what you call the predatory journal. The largest publication house in the world is a Springer and Elsevier. Except this, we have Oxford Journals, which is published by Oxford University Press. There is a group called Taylor and Francis Group. I'm specifically talking about the science and the commerce students. We have Ville, which is a good publication house. There is something called Jester. We have Day Grooters, which are an excellent publication house. There is something called Nature Publication Group, where the journal Nature is coming, the world's most highly interfactor journal. There is a Cambridge University Press, okay, Lippincott, Williams, and Wilkins. So these are the reputed publication. There is a Biomed Central also, which are open access publisher. Okay, there is a Frontier group. There is a group called MDPI, which are publishing good journals. But what is the best particular sign of a good journal? That once you submit your paper, okay, at least it will get 6 to 8 months for publication. For at least 3 to 6 months, 8 months, or a year is required, and it should every time it should go through the review process, because review process is the heart of the publication of the paper, because somebody else will read your paper, and what is their opinion about your paper is very much necessary. So review process is the heart of any publication, and if you remove a review process from your paper, then there is a problem, because whatever you have written, it is correct, it is published, which is not good. We in every time whenever we do something, we try to get opinion of other people who are expert in the field, so that the chances of problems will be very very less. Okay, so for the final acceptance of whatever research data you have what you call generated, right, the evaluation of the data will be done by reviewers, the people who are working in a group. So the review process should not be removed for publication of the paper. So that is there. Fine. Fine. This is what I wanted to share with you guys. This is the end of my talk. We still have some time to take some questions. So I am available right now to take some questions from the audience. Yes. So time to ask one question. You can write in the chat box so we can, take some questions, or the admin can read the questions from the YouTube and we can discuss it. We still have some time for question answer session. Admin, can you hear me? Hello. If you have any questions, please ask. Okay, if there is no question, then we can end the session over here. Admin, please take over the session. Admin, can you hear me? Hello. Okay, so now this is the end of the session and we will stop our presentation. Thank you so much.